I've always wanted a puppy dog, and now I think I'll have one. And toast! Does green lipstick smell interesting? Hi guys, and oh, too loud for Grissom. Was too loud for Grissom. Hi guys, it's Leanne, and welcome back to the book haul, to end all book hauls. I asked you guys what 4 videos you would most want to see. I stuck them in a poll. This is number 2, and it is a cumulative book haul. Cumulative book haul for many months that I have not hauled. I'm a bit scared, not gonna lie. This pile is 3 columns high, and I also might have some things on my Kindle. Definitely gonna be a 2-part video. Strap in. Okay, we're going to start with a pile of books that I'm in the process of reading, because that's how I roll when I'm not doing my stack at TBRs. I start all the things, and then there are so many things. So many things. But don't worry, because Stack It is coming back in November for Non-Fiction November, and that is also my announcement that I am doing that. Profesh. The first book is a completely random find. It was a blind buy, which is something that I almost never do anymore. I picked up this book when lovely wife Helen, you all requested to see her, this is the best I can do right now because she's at work. When lovely wife Helen was in hospital last month, was it last month? How time flies when you are not having fun. And I had run out of juice on all of my devices, which was why I didn't check Goodreads for this one. And I was in the gift shop and I was like, I need something to occupy me right now. And I ended up picking up this one. This is Confessions of a Sociopath by M.E. Thomas. And when I first picked it up and sort of glanced at the cover, I thought, oh, this is going to be something along the lines of Sweet Pea by C.J. Scoose, which is of course about a self-confessed sociopathic serial killer who I want to be when I grow up. We love you, Rhiannon, we love you. But it's not about that at all. This is actually a memoir from M.E. Thomas, which is a pseudonym, by the way. And M.E. Thomas is a high-functioning, non-criminal sociopath, self-identified, who believes that there are very many high-functioning sociopaths who are living in our society quite peaceably, just doing you know, their own thing and not actually killing people and appearing on things like CSI and Criminal Minds. This memoir kind of deconstructs both how she lives in society and also her theories about society and about how we interact with each other and about how her way of living is more honest. Also, generally when you are reading a book about a sociopath, you are generally either reading non-fiction about people's interactions with sociopaths, or you're reading something which is geared to be more palatable to you, like the tongue-in-cheek humour too much passion humour in Sweet Pea, or even like the kind of like of like Red Dragon and Silence of the Lambs, etc. But this is not that. This is from the point of view of somebody who acts like that, who is very egotistical and believes in themselves above all other things, and so it can be a bit of a weird reading experience because you really don't like her, but she doesn't care that you don't like her. She's giving you her truth and her facts, and so yeah, I really am enjoying this one. I'm nearly finished it. I think that this is one for any of you who have a bit of an obsession with the idea of sociopathy or psychopathy in any way. I would also like to point out that my bookmark in this is this very tiny detective notepad from a game of Cluedo that I also bought in the same gift shop, and I won. And I don't win Cluedo very often for a Slytherin, I'm very bad at Cluedo. So next up I have this beautiful book. This is Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi, and this one was gifted to me by Pan Macmillan. There will be a few of those in both parts of this haul because Pan Mac are the best. This one is actually a literary fiction book. Again, I mentioned in my last video that my relationship with literary fiction was on the outs for a long time. and then I got a craving and I went back there, and then we got into the, you know, the It's Complicated phase, and now I'm kind of back in love, and it's all the fault of this one. This is also not the kind of thing that I would normally read in literary fiction, because it's bordering on magical realism slash surrealism. So this is essentially the story of a few different characters who are all woven together by one coffee shop. This coffee shop has the ability to brew a special blend which allows the person who is drinking the coffee to go back in time and re-experience a moment that they want to change. And so we have, let's see, someone who would like to confront the lover who left them, someone who would like to receive a letter from their husband whose memory has begun to fade, someone who would like to see their sister for the last time, and someone who would like to meet the daughter they never got a chance to know. And so this weaves together their stories whilst also kind of telling you the story about this cafe, and also kind of making some really, really good points about the idea that if you could go back and change things, we all would, but would it necessarily actually make anything better for you in your present day? The next one that I have here was a gift from my lovely friend Ellis, and you can go over and check out her channel if you like my studio vlogs. She also does studio vlogs and she is great. And she sent me her spare copy of The Melancholy Death of Oyster Boy and Other Stories by Tim Burton, because I really, really wanted to read it. We were chatting about Tim Burton. I had no idea that this book actually existed. This is a story. It's not really stories, it's a series of short poems, I would say, some of which interlink, some of which are standalones, and they're all kind of weird. They're all very Tim Burton-y, and they are interspersed with his illustrations. One of my favourites was Voodoo Girl. I'll just read you a little bit just to give you a taster, because I think it sums up the collection better than I could. And it says, "Her skin is white cloth and she's all sewn apart, and she has many coloured pins sticking out of her heart. She has a beautiful set of hypno-disc eyes, the ones that she uses to hypnotise guys." There's another little illustration, and then it says, "She has many different zombies who are deeply in her trance. She even has a zombie who was originally from France. But she knows she has a curse on her, a curse she cannot win, for if someone gets too close to her, the pins stick farther in." Next up, while we're talking about poetry, I have got this. I don't even want to call this a book. It's past a book. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful object. This is Poems to Fall in Love With, which was collected and illustrated by Chris Riddle. This is the second. There's also one which is Poems to Live By, which I will be picking up in due course, because these are some of Chris Riddle's favourite poems, and he has popped them all in one volume, and he has done illustrations to go along with all of them. I mean, this is just the frontispiece. I mean, you guys all know that I am obsessed with Chris Riddle. I love him. I love everything that he does. I just think his illustrations are just so good, whether it is pencil drawings as he has in here, or whether it's full colour spreads. I don't care. I love him. I also really love when he... Oh, I didn't even realise that poem was in here. I've flicked it through to "I Carry Your Heart With Me," which is what this is a paraphrase from, as a tribute to my granddad and my lovely wife Helen. So, mildly emotion. Okay, let's push past it. Let's push past it. I also really love when Chris Riddle writes his own children's books. He has written quite a few at this point, and I think I own all of them. I'm obsessed, and so this was a must-have, and it's great. It's great. Some of my favourite poems are actually in here, believe it or not. I don't think I've ever talked about my favourite poems. If that's a video that you want me to do, I can do that. Don't know why I'd never thought about that before. The next book that I have also comes from the wonderful Pan Macmillan. By the way, they have a book break channel. I am not obliged to mention that in this video. I just really, really love Emma and her content, so go and see that one. And this is another literary fiction which I'm really, really liking. This is My House is Falling Down by Mary Loudon. This one is a really weird book, but I'm really enjoying it, albeit I am taking it very slowly. So this is about Lucy, who is married to Mark, and she has a small child. I think she has her own business, and also Mark has his own business. He's a painter, and they kind of live a life just a little step removed from the everyday working grind. And so Mary kind of feels, I would say, just a tad abandoned, just a tad out of touch with the world, and she's wondering what the next step in her life is when she meets somebody and completely unexpectedly she finds herself falling really, really hard for him. One of the things that I love the most about this is that this book tackles the idea of age and aging and how things change as we get older and how what we want changes. So Lucy's, I think, 42 in this book, and I think her husband Mark's about the same age as her, but her lover, the person that she has fallen for, Angus, is actually in his 60s and is a concert pianist and is a completely different gear of individual from anybody she's ever met or wanted to get to know in the past. And she realises when she meets him that she might want something different for the rest of her life, but what does that mean for her present life, which she doesn't dislike, and her husband, who she does love very much still. And so this book kind of explores that, and it also explores what happens when, rather than engaging in jealousy, her husband is then willing to allow her to have an affair if it makes her happy, as long as she stays, but not in a way where it's a begging or a compromise, but wherein he literally is like, yeah, that's fine, go. The only thing I will say about this one is that the prose is, I would say it's a little bit overwritten. It's just a little bit more flowery than I would usually pick up, but I think that's a taste thing. I think that's just my personal preference, and if it sounds like something that you would like to try, I wouldn't say don't do that. I would say, you know, jump in with both feet. Okay, on to some more predictable books that I have. So the next one that I'm going to show you is the next book from my beloved Ruth Ware. This is her 5th standalone thriller. I'm actually behind one because I haven't read The Death of Mrs. Westaway yet. Don't spoil me in the comments. And I think I may actually end up reading this one first. This is The Turn of the Key. That's right, yes, I kept wanting to say The Turn of the Screw, of course, naturally. And this one is, oh, it's everything I love about Ruth Ware. So before I go any further, I always recommend Ruth Ware to people who want a thriller that they're not going to take too tremendously seriously, but that is still going to have atmosphere, page-turning action, and writing that's good. It's not wonderful writing. We're not going to lofty new like literature prize levels here. It's just good, solid writing, and I really love Ruth Ware. She, however, is extreme cheese. It's like when you watch a horror movie and you watch the character going down a creepy staircase on their own without a torch, and you're just like, well, you done brought that on yourself, didn't you? That's what reading a Ruth Ware book is like. This one also serves cheese on toast for me personally, because this one's set in Scotland. So it's about Rowan, who is trying to run away from her life, which is also a theme in a lot of Ruth Ware novels. And she answers an advert in a newspaper for a live-in nanny in Scotland. And so she travels to Scotland and discovers that this home, which Heatherbray House, pick the 2 most Scottish words that there are and just jam them together, just squish them in there. That'll be the ones that we use. Heatherbray House turns out to be a house in the remote Highlands, but a smart house. Everything is high tech, everything does it itself in the house. And I'm wondering if that's going to be a theme, like, is the house too smart? I'm very excited to find out. And Rowan thinks everything is great and that she has achieved her goals of leaving her life. And then the blurb tells you, not a spoiler, haven't started it yet, the blurb tells you that she actually ends up in a police cell with a dead child. I don't know if the dead child's in the cell, I doubt it, but you know, like, there's a dead child and so then the cell happens. And not everything is exactly as it seems, and I'm there for it. Carrying on the theme of predictability, the next one that I have is an illustrated edition, which of course you guys knew I was going to pick up. I mean, I think everybody on BookTube by this point has picked it up. This is a Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, the illustrated edition by Jim Kay. So, I mean, you know when you open a book and this spread here is the first thing that you see, you know that you're onto a winner. But there are so many illustrations in here that I am just in love with. Let me find you a few of my favourites. Just lovely to see Smiley Harry, and I think little illustrations like this prove to me that it doesn't have to be a big, like, saucy double page spread. It can literally just be the smallest little detail on the edge of a page and it makes me happy. Although I have to say, this book is filled with double page spreads that look like this. And I'm not going to spoil too anymore, but I mean, realistically, aren't we all a bit of a basic bitch for the Hogwarts Express? The next book that I have here is again extremely predictable, and again it's illustrated, but I think if 13-year-old Leanne knew that she was going to eventually be holding this book in her hands, she would have decided that, you know what, her life was going to be pretty okay no matter what else had happened up to that point. This is Assassin's Apprentice. This is the first book in the Farseer trilogy by Robin Hobb, and of course the Farseer trilogy is the first book in the much longer series, The Realm of the Elderlings. In case you don't know, this is a high fantasy series wherein Fitz is a bastard. He has been brought up by his mother and then is randomly, apparently, deposited with his uncles, and you know, they're told, here, you have him, he's yours now. He's a royal blood, you have to look after him. And so he gets taken in mostly by the stable master at the time and raised in a very hodgepodge way in the bowels of the castle that he really should have inherited. And his father at this point is dead, and so he kind of goes on a mission to find out who he is and who his dad was, and in amongst all of that, the Six Duchies are kind of slowly burning down with fire because there is a plague of, let's call them raiders on the coast, that are doing some very unspeakable things to the villages that they hit, and those villagers are then carrying a, let's call it a plague, further inland. And so that's what that series looks at, and then of course the rest of the series expands on that. So this book very much for me is like Harry Potter. It's like coming home, it's like meeting up with old friends and rehashing all of the stories that you've told each other 100 times over, but it just comforts you to do so. I would love to tell you who illustrated this novel, but I've tried like 5 times now and I just can't do the pronunciation any justice. So this is the wonderful person who's produced these illustrations. We start with, I mean, I think any fantasy fan ever who gets a coloured map is just immediately happy. So the very first plate in this one is Fitz and Birch, and it just gives me all the feels. It just gives me all the freaking feels. I must admit that I was a bit of a snivelly mess when I opened it and saw that. I'm not going to spoil too many of them because it's not like the Harry Potter illustrated editions. There are just plates in, I think I would say maybe every second chapter, but they're stunning. They're absolutely stunning. I can't find the one that I want to show you. Please hold. Yes, just yes. These are amazing, and if I could buy larger versions for my print gallery walls, I absolutely would. I say if you're swithering or on the fence about this because it's a little bit pricey, it's totally worth it. Okay, where do we go next? Right, let's do something far less predictable. In fact, something quite random. In the UK, there is a TV show called SAS Who Dares Wins, and it is essentially a show wherein 16 or 18 people from around the UK who consider themselves usually quite fit and like mentally quite on point decide to take part in what would be SAS selection. So exactly what the army puts elite SAS soldiers through before they put them into the front lines and covert operations and things like that. And we have these 4 motley guys who run the selection. They are staff is what they are regarded as by the participants, and they put them through it, but these guys have been through it themselves. They have been serving soldiers in some horrible places, and they can't talk about a lot of the missions that they went on and a lot of the things that they saw because they're government secrets. And so when I discovered that these guys actually had books out, I was like, I want them now. So the first one that I've got here is First Man In by Ant Middleton. I wasn't expecting very much from these books because, again, as I've said 100 times, I am perfectly capable of enjoying a memoir or a non-fiction book by an author who is not necessarily a traditional author. They didn't come in any of the traditional routes. Writing wasn't what they wanted to do first. They did other things first and then wrote about it. I'm perfectly happy with that. I do not need everything to be Oxford levels of prose. But what I got in these books was just so freaking good. It blew me out of the water. So this one really looks at how Ant Middleton believes that he uses his demons to fuel him in his everyday life. He has had a horrible childhood, a really abrupt and uncomfortable upbringing, wherein he was kind of just slung into the army and told, see ya, do good things. And he went from the army where he excelled back into civil life where he just couldn't cope because he didn't have the structure and he had never learned how to be a person outside of any kind of special services. From there, he then went to the special boat service and then was literally first man in on a lot of jobs, the most trusted point man who would be the first guy through a door on any kind of operation, and anything that's on the other side of that door is his to deal with. He has to make the split second decision. And because of that, I ended up picking up his second one, which is The Fear Bubble. So he talks a lot in his first book about the idea of fear and how he doesn't experience it in the same way that other people do, and that he's not really sure at that time how that happened. And this second book kind of picks up after he's finished with all of his elite service work, when he's on the telly and when he has this life that's suddenly been dropped on his lap that he didn't expect to have, and how he feels differently, how he feels fear more, and what he's done to kind of conquer that. Snoring dog is now knocking the camera. There's no respect in this house. Have respect. Ant teaches respect. You read the book. On top of those, where I don't have anywhere, no piles. On top of both of those, I picked up this one by Jason Fox, or Foxy as he's known in the show. Now, conversely, when you look at the different guys in this show and the different things that they've been through, you can see that there's a big difference between how they've decided to deal with it in their future lives and how they coped with it at the time. And whereas Ant really used his fear as fuel and really used it as determination to say screw you to all the people who said he couldn't do it, Foxy never had that issue. Foxy was already top of his game, elite, doing great in his personal life, doing great in everything. And then all of a sudden, after years and years of being in the service and years of doing this job and being at the top of the line in this job, he suddenly developed an anxiety disorder. Also a thing that I've discovered, although Ant's books are really good, he's very articulate, he's very smart, Foxy can actually write. Like, I think he could easily go on to write a fictional book with atmosphere and characters and, you know, plot lines very successfully. He can really write, and it's just such a pleasant thing to discover that you have picked up these books by these like hard men that you see on TV, and look, he can actually write and he's actually quite a sensitive soul. So yeah, I'm really enjoying this too. If you watch the show or you're at all interested in any of those things, there are these two, and then there's also Ollie and Billy's books, which are next up on my list. Another complete departure. Just this book haul is changing genres at breakneck speed. You just never know where you're going to be. The next book that I have is a novella from Becky Chambers, and it is To Be Taught If Fortunate. It is not in her Wayfarers series, which I actually didn't realise at the time that I pre-ordered this. And I'm not gonna lie, I was a tiny little bit disappointed because I'm a Wayfarers fan, as many other people are. I want the next book, Becky. I want the next book. But I'm still really excited for this one because it's a premise that I don't think I've seen done quite like this before. So in this universe, humans have started to terraform other planets and colonize other planets in order to, you know, sustain burgeoning human life and not kill this planet. And they are slowly realizing that there are a lot of planets out there that are hostile environments for humans, that are places where humans should never usually survive, but that they do have sentient life there. They do have actual beings there that we could communicate with. And so scientists have made a breakthrough. It's a drug that allows humans to take these supplements and go onto these planets where they would never normally be able to survive outside of spacesuits and interact with these new sentient life forms. And it's essentially what happens when they get to do that, and I'm there for it. Let's do an easy one. Let's do this one. This is 100 Nasty Women of History by Hannah Jewell, and it's kind of the very adult, very tongue-in-cheek, kind of quite sweary take on goodnight stories for rebel girls and similar books that have popped up in the last few years for kids. So this one, this one's kind of half and half. I'd say there's maybe like half of the women in here are people that I've heard of, people like Sappho and Boudica and Mary Wollstonecraft. There's some queens in here, there's people like Dorothy Parker. So there's some people in here that you're gonna know, and then the other half is people that you've never heard of. And some of them are just great, but I'm gonna warn you, it's not exactly for the faint of heart. Don't share it with your children yet. Wait till they're teenagers. This is not for younger children. We'll finish on a memoir, seeing as we're heading into non-fiction November, and then I'll come back in part 2 and do all the rest of them. This one is Diary of a Lone Twin by David Loftus. It is a memoir. This was also sent to me by the wonderful people at PanMac. This one is a kind of harrowing memoir from David Loftus, who is actually a photographer, and he lost his identical twin. And when his twin died, he kind of had to reframe his existence as one half of a whole, which is what they had always been seen as. And there's a quote on the back that I have to read to you because it was what sold me. John and I loved each other immensely, immeasurably, but I probably only appreciated how immense this love was once he was gone. And the unreal, unbelievable silence that followed his dying dawned the unimaginable truth that he, wiser, more talented, and my leader by 10 important minutes, was gone. I was in the state most people are in for the first time since conception and cellular division, a singleton. And I just, he kind of pieces together his diary in the wake of his brother's death, and looks at his brother's writings and looks at photographs that exist and photographs that he took of them before he died, and that's how it's presented. It's kind of epistolary. I found the bit that I read of it at the start, I think I read maybe like 40 pages of it, I found it quite confronting. So I'm looking forward to picking this one up, and I'm considering putting it on my non-fiction November stack it, because yeah, I don't think I want to allow myself to put it off. I think I want to force myself to feel the feels now. Okay, so that ends part 1. I have a cat and a dog who just won't leave me alone. I am now going to go and put all of those books on my shelf, get myself a cup of tea, and come back and film part 2, which will be here for you very, very soon. And it's equal in length, if not slightly larger. as always, if you have read any of the books that I've picked up here, please let me know in the comments, or if I have maybe convinced you to pick up and give a go any of them, I would like to hear about that too. And of course, if you have read any of them and you haven't enjoyed them, then please let me know about that too. I am always interested in opinions. Opinions live here. I'll see you soon, guys. Bye! I mean, you haven't been the most helpful member of the team during this book haul. Don't lick the green lipstick. It won't taste nice.